All right, no pre-submitted questions today. Hey, everyone. Wade, ask you to unmute. All right, go ahead, Wade. What you got for us?
Hey, and it might be helpful if I share my screen too on this one.
Okay, just to note, we record all of these things and they
That-
live on YouTube for forever. So I just want to make that explicit.
That's fine.
Okay, great. Let me make you I'll promote you to a panelist, and then you can
Okay.
then you can share screen once you're in there. And then Radley will grab you up next, sir.
Okay. I think I'm here. Share. All right. See me?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, this is going to be a lot easier if I don't know how to explain all this stuff. So I guess don't need to know really what's going on here. Just that this is my question here. The fetch entities, the one.
Okay.
So right now, if I just so you can see that it works, I'm going to debug it, and it's going to go to question 4. Okay, and this is just like the default test thing. Okay, it comes with a question like it's supposed to. But
okay,
if I go back to this and I put limit results 1 and then debug again, there's no results. And I feel that has something to do with, I did have a question 4 before, and I re-uploaded the whole thing, so I deleted all the questions and I re-uploaded a new question 4. Is it trying to pull the old question 4 and, well, as if there's two question 4s, one's deleted, one's not, and it can't decide what to do? And
there is a DT we just had talked about earlier today where limit results is causing deleted data to be fetched. So I think you're onto something with that.
Yeah, if it's unchecked,
right? Even if it's unchecked, it will try to fetch deleted data.
And related to this, when I go here, don't save. When I go to the actual setup of the entity, the index I did have set up as create index, so then I could put unique value in there. If this is checked, it will not let me add a new question 4 because it like thinks it still exists, even though that question 4 is deleted. Because I have a report that shows everything that's not deleted, and it was blank, and then I inserted a whole new list. This was selected, and then it said, oh no, this index number already exists. Like, well, it does, but it's deleted.
Index number already exists.
The field I'm calling.
Yeah.
I mean, it says index here, but we're actually calling the field index as well too.
Right. Well, the create data index just creates a SQL index on that property.
Yeah, because really, I don't know if this is creating the issue, but I really just want this. I want this field to be unique, so there can't be another question 4. But that's because I've deleted that. That's actually hurting me. I mean, once I do this, once I uncheck that, it will let me insert a new question number 4. And then I could import the whole list again.
I see. What type of data? What type of this a folder entity? Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's being folder entities get logically deleted. So you could hard delete that with a query and then restart.
I mean, I thought I did. Because I have a delete questions, and I'm just getting all questions. I'm going through each one, deleting them, and
But that, yeah, so if you look at, if you were to open the query editor and find that waste allocation question table,
This-
that's an entity. And
Yeah.
is the table is the table empty?
I mean, not right now. If I go to, I mean, I don't think it's set up as a table, just an entity. Report questions. I mean, it's got questions there now. Run report. So, I mean, there's just one question 4. But I don't have deleted right now. So how do I delete it and it just it's gone? Like, how do I hard delete something, or can I?
You just have to do it through SQL. So you could like, if like the easiest way would just be like, if you're just this is all test data, just build yourself like this. You could build a flow with like a raw SQL step in it. And then you could run a delete query that way, or you could run a truncate table command and just drop all the data from that table.
Yeah, really, a truncate would be great. I just want to truncate it.
You probably still have to bounce after you do that, because we won't know the data is because the service layer won't know that the data's been deleted from the database.
Okay.
You should be able to hard delete these things, admittedly, as you're asking these questions.
So just through a SQL command, hard delete it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm doing here, this is what am I calling this? It's not. I guess it's deleting, but it's going to some sort of archive or
it is
or something.
Well, with an entity, we just we have a deleted flag on entities, and we mark them deleted. That's why, like that fetch deleted, like the fetch entity step, it will ignore deleted objects. If it was hard deleted, it wouldn't even know about them, right? Because they would be gone. But it has a deleted flag, and so we allow you to undelete entities. Now those things can get archived. We do have archiving that will hard delete those entities once the archive date has passed, which is more used for like long-term cleanup than it is for like a quick sort of test cycling type thing, if you're just trying to clean data up. The quickest thing you could do right now would be to now we host for you guys, don't we?
Yes.
We could restart it for you. I mean, it would just be to truncate the table.
Well, I'd have to in the future. We probably will need to delete this table a few times. We're going through the testing phase, so I may want to wipe the table and just redo it maybe a few more times.
We go to system settings, and there's archive settings. You could enable archive settings and then set this thing to delete, but it only runs on certain. You only run system, the settings, and then archive settings. So calendar. Okay. You could set up because we host, and it could be kind of a pain. Click under, you don't have this gets a bit easier. What doesn't require restarts if you get on a more current version of 8, something that's newer than 8.9 or newer. We've added some archiving.
And there's a way these questions, I don't even want to archive them. I just want to wipe them completely.
Yeah, well, archiving, if there's no configuration, just means hard delete. In this example, it's like hard delete or move somewhere depending on how it's configured. Now click add on the archive settings for type there. And yeah, this isn't going to give you fast enough. Like you could set it to delete everything older than a day for that particular, waste allocation question. But I think right now just doing a raw SQL step with a truncate table or a delete from, and then a service restarts, they're going to be the quickest way to clean all that information up.
Oh, so after I hard delete it, I service restart every time?
Yeah, or give it like 15 or 20 minutes for the cache to clear out.
Does this do anything when I go here and then hit clear cache data?
It could very well.
I didn't know what this does exactly.
Yeah, it might, honestly. Or go to edit define data structure, and you might just disable caching click on the waste allocation question, and then enabling caching might make this easier as well.
Uncheck it.
Yeah, if you had that deselected, you could hard delete, and it shouldn't have anything cached, so it should just be going to the database every time. And then you'd want that for production runs, but you could probably run without that. It probably precludes you from needing to restart anything while you drop that or you truncate that table directly from SQL.
Okay.
That's a bit of a guess on my part, just to be clear, but that might work.
Okay. While I'm in here, I did have a question related to this. For the type within here, for some reason this is not in the docs. What does this do?
Oh, that is what it's supposed to do. I don't actually think it's working, but what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to act like a rule and prevent you from saving those.
Right. It doesn't seem to do that.
Yeah. So what you'd want to do is build, if you'd go back to you could do the same behavior, but in your configuration folder. In your configuration folder for waste allocation question, if you click in there,
okay,
you could write an entity event. Go to entity events. No, go to Go to all at the far right hand corner. Create validation rule at the very bottom, and you could add a validation rule. And in here, you could write a rule that says that does that, and that will run anytime that object's saved. That old setting has been depreciated, but we haven't removed it yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess is that, yeah. So that's an old setting, not a new thing that's just not working yet.
Correct, or an old setting which stopped working. Either way, we provided a newer way with the rule designer.
Oh, okay.
To do the same thing.
I was like, oh, this is nice. I can just put the valid values in here and I don't got to mess with any rules or anything. Okay. I'm kind of doing that within my flow. I'm basically telling, is it a valid type or not? And then show error if it's not a valid type. But I just essentially need to put this on the configuration thing.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and you could do it there. Like you can do it on the form. Like there's a lot of places you can do that at.
Yeah, I was just putting that same list in here and just saying, hey, is this a valid type for this entity? If it's not, show an error. But I could do that because I don't want to. It'd be nice if it never even got in the first place, and I wouldn't have to check for it. So, okay, so make a validation rule on the entity or a configuration folder. Got it. Okay, and then just don't use, or maybe after I hard delete.
I think there's limit results is new on fetch entities. I think you're hitting some issues with it. Okay. So if you want it, like if you only want one result, you can click show path for one result there.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, and if it returns a single result, it'll output on that path as a single item instead of an array of items.
Okay. Yeah, I guess on here I was just trying to. It's nice if there was just less arrows. So now I got some. If I put one result, now I got to do something with this result. That would just Understood. It'd be nice if it was it would alternate. Like this would only ever have one because I'm gonna hard limit it to one. So only show this and don't even show me the results because I'm limiting it here. But okay.
Right. I don't disagree. That would be preferable. But yeah, right now, if you need one, you could do path for one result, but it doesn't handle the multi results. Or if you know you're only getting one result back, you can just always deal with the first item in the collection.
That's if you're getting a kind of what back. I'm doing down here. Once I go, I'm doing first array, first item.
Sure.
That way I'm not, even if there is, well, I guess I had to do it anyway because I can't limit it here. So I got to do it down here with first question. There should only be one. You know, the Excel, we dedupe on the Excel sheet before we even bring it in. So it should, but just in case someone inputs it manually on the decision side, I didn't want them to be able to make the duplicate question.
Sure. Yep.
Makes sense. Yeah, that all makes sense. It works. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Let's see. And Adrian, I never seem to be able to. Can I move Wade back to? Oh, I can. Look at that. Change role to attendee. All right, and then that puts us with. Let me get my participant list. Let me reshare my screen. And then that puts Radley up next. And all right, Radley, what you got, sir?
Hey, Will. So I think I have a user context issue, but I'm not exactly sure. So I have a workflow where I'm setting up process folders, and each one of those process folders is going to have unique permissions.
Okay.
And I'm allowing the user to determine across 3 roles what people need to be in each role, including themselves.
Okay.
So at some point in the workflow, it's allowable for the current user to pull themselves out of all the roles. So they would have no permissions.
Okay.
So that's kind of causing a little bit of a problem, because the first thing that I do, or one of the first things I do, is revoke permissions on the current user.
How do you
And
do
then
that? What are you doing to revoke permissions?
I'm just doing the revoke account permission step.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And then it appears that at any point after that step is done, the workflow is just bombing out. It's like, this person doesn't have can use access. Well, of course they don't, because I just pulled the permissions.
Mhm.
So I'm running it as a system user, right? Because there's a property on the revoke step to say, who do you want to run it as?
Okay.
So I've changed that over to system. Still doesn't seem to be functioning like I'd expect. So I didn't know if there was a way after the form closes or is submitted, or whatever the button is, to change the rest of the workflow over to system. It seems like at some point it's still thinking it's running as the current user.
Well, it's not really running as anyone. So somebody can, right, usually you don't control permissions at the right for a process folder inside of the process folder itself. Where are you at? You're in folder service or account service steps?
Folder service, yes.
Okay, so in folder service, you're using a step called revoke. Good Lord, lots of gets. Revoke account permissions.
That's it.
Yep. Account ID and folder ID. Okay, so this is, so likely there might not even be an account permission object in that folder. If you were to look, like what, like, so let's create a regular. Go ahead.
The first time through, I'm establishing.
You're adding one manually?
I'm adding account permissions, because I never know who's going to need permissions to this folder. So I can give you more detail if that'd be helpful. So I start out with a group of defined people that all have the first assignment in the workflow.
Okay.
And what they do, it's a shared task. Whoever wants to goes in and builds out the 3 roles of the workflow. So one of those roles is process owner.
Mm-hmm.
So that first group submits the form. All the permissions are then established. That first group is then taken off of permissions. And now the report owner, they can build out the rest of the team as they need to. And that includes the ability to change the owner to somebody else, not them, right? So they remove themselves from the account owner dropdown, pick somebody else in that dropdown. And then I say, okay, so the first thing I do is I remove all permissions, and then I build them back up.
I see. In the permissions, so are ultimately is it mostly just about making sure it shows up in the right, like, report for users?
There's the report issue. There's just the ability to use the assignment and pull data. This is a whistleblower type workflow, so I want to be very controlled about who can see what when.
Okay. So,
and I'm happy to talk this over with support, maybe if I'm doing this completely the wrong way.
I mean, because ultimately, like, the submitter, the only thing that they kind of like, you could fire off a process, right? And it could be in that fire, if that process, like the main flow, you have a parent flow called submit whistleblower ticket or something, right?
Yep, exactly.
And if the subflow was fired off in an async subflow, like all the logic for the main process was in an async, it would know really nothing about who created it. You could have complete you could make the submitter information completely transparent, or completely like it wouldn't exist at all.
Yeah, and
Oftentimes, go ahead.
sorry, that all works great. Like I've handled all that. I fixed that issue last week. So now I'm kind of on to the process, right? So we got the report in. Now how do we work through and resolve this, investigate it and take it to resolution? So it's there. And how I have this configured, if the report owner, if they change the other groups, like adding or removing people from the other groups that they're not a part of, works fine, no problems. It's only when they remove themselves as the owner and pick somebody else, right? So as soon as they do that,
it bombs out.
The workflow errors out. Yeah.
Even when you run that stuff as system context.
I do. Yep. I'm running both because I get the account from an email address. I run that as a system context, and then I run the revoke as a system context as well.
I mean, you could try, if this is working, it sounds wonky to me, Bradley, but like you could try putting this in an async flow to completely delink it from the current user.
Okay.
Like likely you could get away with less focus on permissions and more just controlling like filtering on report. Because like at some point some user has the assignment, right? And so you could filter, you could have a filter be like for current user that shows like just the process folders that are that own an assignment assigned to the current user. But you can also do filtering on reports. I think we called them like SQL filters.
Yeah, it's a report data store. Well, I used a data source.
These things
flow.
Like you could do these current user filters, and it allows you to specify a particular property to check. And then if you use the account ID or the email address.
Okay.
So in one sense, like if your process folder had like process owner as like a property, maybe your action could just change that value, and then this current user filter could look for the process owner. Is the current user the process owner?
Okay.
Right, and then by account ID or by email address, and that way I could see all. This would be your execution extension data type, right? But these current use these SQL filters or whatever we call them should apply. We call them SQL based filters. And you can do for current folder, current user, and you can specify the type, the folder ID, account ID, user ID, or email, and then what field in the report that is. Because it was like this got tricky when people wanted to see. We added this because like people were like, hey, I want to be able to see. I can easily make reports for people's assignments, but it's harder to make reports for the manager of those users. So I could see, the manager could see everyone's current assignments in their group. That would get a little tricky for us, and we added these as a way to kind of like do that. My brain is going here when you're talking about changing these roles around.
Okay.
And instead of like adding, because it's not very common to have to mess with the account permission objects directly in the flows. Usually those things inherit from their parent folder.
Yeah.
But this example doesn't sound like it would make sense to have unique folders for different groups or different users. Because one option could be to just move the process folder around and to have it move from one folder to another, given who's the process owner or something.
Yeah, there would be infinite combinations of people that could own,
right,
or at least be a team member on a given report.
But you can add multiple of these, and you can and you can OR them together. So you could say show everyone who's the process owner or the subtype owner or the business owner or whatever.
Awesome.
So this might be something to peek into, that if that call it, I doubt just calling it an async subflow is going to fix anything for you.
Okay.
I bet we've never had someone have to revoke their own access or their own permission, and so there's some squirrely you're hitting.
It made sense once I kind of thought about it. Oh, that's the problem. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Appreciate it. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you bet, man. All right, and then Murray is up next here. I have a folder entity data structure that I need to check status on throughout a process. It is nested within a case entity that has its own states. Should I just use a field with a list of possible statuses, or is there a better way? So you just need to be able to like fetch in the current case the state of one of these of one of these folder entities, right?
In the case and also standalone within the entities. So it's like a client and then their accounts. So some people care about it at the client level. Some people care about it at the account level. The client level, it's a case, so I know how to set the states there. And since it had a configuration folder, which I admittedly did not look at until I needed it, and then I was like, oh, I don't have states here. So,
well, you're well, for the entity.
yes.
Well, you do. You can. An entity does have a state, and there is a step called set entity state, and you can use this if you give it the ID of that entity. You could set its state to anything if you needed to.
Okay, so it would work similar to setting a state in a case. It just doesn't have that display.
It doesn't have it doesn't have expected states, if that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
But ultimately, even with expected states, those states are just strings. Like the state property is just a string property. So like if you have like you know, like you have an entity that's like some sort of record, right? And all records need to be approved before the full case can be approved or something. Well, then you could, as you have people review the individual records, you know, you could have like individual actions whose they you know, open a form. That form shows the entity in that case folder, and then if they say approved, it just runs a set state step or set entity state, sets the entity state from null to approved, and then you know, the workflow checks to see if all entities in that current folder have been approved or not, something like that. But ultimately, it's the set entity state step is probably I think the big miss is that there's just no expected states like there are for a case, because there's no trigger, there's no case triggers. There's no state change trigger by behavior.
Okay, that makes more sense, because everyone was telling me I could track states on these, but then when I went to look for it, I didn't see any. So it's just not an expected state in that display like it is in a case, but I can still use states.
Correct. And you can even if you get to a place where you need to, you can even build custom state trigger flows. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't, not that, but like on an entity, this is entity test 1, and I'll just give this, a standard string property. And then if I look inside of this, if I look in entity test configuration, there are state, there's still state triggers here. So you could create like trigger flows when they move between things. You're just not going to get the same view because it's not a folder behavior.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. That's what I needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and a question from Anon Will. In JS controls, how can we search for decisions rendered controls? JS control is being executed before form is rendered. Oof. We've had to do some of these where we call like on document load in the JS control. That's a tough one. We have a sample. We hit this before, I think. I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to answer this one well enough. But I think we hit this before when we built a JS control for someone for an example. And we had to force the JS control to wait for the full thing, for everything to load, like, you know, confirm on load. There's like jQuery or JavaScript to make sure the whole form is rendered. I think it's on form load, on document load. I don't think there was anything specific. You just wait for the whole form to render before you let the behavior of the JavaScript control execute. It's like, let's see if I can do this. I don't know where I might have I don't know that we have an example of this though. Yeah, I think it's something, yeah. Here's just, I don't know. Here, I think it's just normal like document.ready types call outs in jQuery, though you might like, or whatever, there's a vanilla version of this as well that you have to include in your JavaScript control, something like that. It's not a decision specific question. And I'm not sure if you can access the other, and I wouldn't assume you need to access this a specific control. If your goal is to try to get a value into the JS control, you could name the input the same as the data name of the like text box or whatever you're trying to steal values from, or just do something similar to this and wait for the whole form to load. Something along those lines is what I think the answer is. But document is ready when you just run flow. I can't see how that's true. Yeah, but also I don't think I'm going to be able to do a very good job of answering JavaScript control questions on the fly here as much as I might want to. We can help you with this in support for sure. Like if we can get access, if you can send in your JS control with a description of the issue you're having, we can ask one of the devs to take a peek at it and see if there's something that that's missing. Form is rendering in the same document. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is, I think this is, yeah, apologies. I think this is probably just a support question. I'm not sure. Okay, Javiera, what do you have for us? Well, assuming you're not the person who was asking about the JavaScript control just now.
Oh no. So hi Will. So I have an issue with calling an API, and I have the error called 400 bad request.
Mm-hmm.
The error says that it requests a body with
Mm-hmm.
a parameter called grant type,
Okay.
but we do have it in our JSON with our client credentials, and we checked it with Postman, by example, but with decisions, we haven't been able to integrate it.
So you can make a successful call with Postman?
Exactly. Or actually, it's a successful call with blob storage from Azure.
With blob storage. Uh-huh.
Yes.
But are you, okay, have you attempted to make the same call you're trying to make in decisions with Postman? To confirm
Yes.
you have the
Yes,
correct,
it
the
does
correct
work,
body?
but with decisions, it doesn't work, the call.
And are you using JSON for the request body?
Yes.
And you've copied the JSON of the Postman call into a step in decisions and run it?
Exactly as it is. Yeah, and it doesn't work. I don't know if there's a chance that we can schedule that a meet to check that, like, in a deeper way.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely, if we support can help, if you want to review that. I mean, it does mean that the request body is being malformed in some way. Like, are you using a custom REST step or using the default post step?
I don't know if Luis is in this call, but he's also working on that, and maybe he can answer that.
I'm sorry, who?
Luis Casas?
I don't see someone by that name in the attendee list right now. Though I do see 2 accounts with your name on it, so maybe they signed in under your account, which can happen.
Could be.
The first thing I would try is what I would do is go find this step. It's the post step. It's in the I think it's system integration or integration. Actually, I don't know where it's at. Does it tell me in step information? There you go. Integration HTTP. Under integration HTTP, there is a post step. What I would do is try this. Put this to text merge plain, paste your JSON in here, put your URL in here, and see if you can't get this to run. Like your actual, like just take the JSON from Postman and run it, and see if you can get this to run here. Is the property it's calling out in the 400 response one of the properties in the JSON or in the JSON?
So he's saying that we do that by systems integrations, and then we run a method, not with the steps like you're doing it right now. Should we do it like with flow?
Systems integrations, and we do it with a method. That doesn't make sense to me. System integrations.
Yeah. and then we run it with method.
Like add a REST service.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, but you could try, I'm just saying like here, it'd be worth a quick shot just to see, like a very simple test is using this default post step. It's,
so
without knowing how you're, go ahead.
he just corrected me. He said it's like a REST API.
Right. Well, like this post step is a REST API, or if you come to create data types integration, external services, you can add custom REST steps to your flow.
That's the one that's not reading our JSON correctly. And that's like done, but there's one type of attribute that's called grant type, and that's the one that the decisions is not reading.
Is grant type like a special header?
Let me check. No, it's not.
Grant type is when you run it in Postman, grant its type is in the body of the request.
Yes, it's in the body.
Sorry here, submit. I feel like grant type is a special type of header. Am I just make believing that? Come on, Postman. Sorry, I'm. Okay, can I? Ridiculous. All right, grant type headers. Grant, no. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's something.
Let me like.
Grant type is probably an octaparam. Grant type, client credentials.
You see, and the error message says that the grant type is not recognized.
So yeah, so I see it in the chat here. Are you trying to make a call into Azure storage? Are you making a call to Azure from decisions?
Yes.
Have you looked at the module? Under system administration features, we should have a Azure module, Azure services. Now, I don't know if we support like this. This does look like there's some sort of single sign-on piece here that we might not be able to, that we might be struggling to support. So that doesn't really look like valid JSON when I'm looking at it.
Yes, because when we put the link to the API, we get the answer, but when we run the method, it breaks saying that the grant type is not recognized. But the grant type is there.
Let's see back here. One of the Azure module might be a better fit. If I look inside of the flow here under integration, I should now have Azure storage, get list directories or get list files in Azure Blob. And this takes in a connection string property to connect to it. It might even have a system setting. Is there Azure service? There's Azure service bus settings, which is default connection string. So I would probably point you to look at the Azure service, the Azure module, and see if that might have some more. There's Azure service bus queue. That's messaging. Maybe. Not a ton there. Adding an Azure queue. This is all about Azure queues right now. Yeah, I'd probably point you at looking, though I don't know that I have good docs for this, at the Azure module.
Yeah, we couldn't find.
What's the use case you're trying to solve? What are you trying to do? Download a file from Azure Blob Storage?
So we do have the information on that blob storage, but with decisions, we're trying to call that information and show it or download it or post more information to that blob storage with decisions. And we can't get the token.
Okay, so. All right, I think we're gonna have to do this in support and get someone to build an example and get it sent over for you. Let me see if I can't ask someone on the documentation team to use this as an opportunity to get this sorted out. And then we could send it over for you. Could you send me an email, will@decisions.com, with your email address? So I can have someone follow up for you.
Sure. Do I type it right here?
If you could just email me, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, so Will Peterson, what's your email?
It's just will@decisions.com, WILL.
Perfect. So I'll send you that email right now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Kirsten, I think I just signed you up for something. So. Fun. Okay, any other questions? Jeremy, I saw your email. I'm really sorry about forgetting to follow up about your question. I'm talking to devs about it now, so I'll get you something in short order. I do apologize about that. Okay, is that everybody? Everything from everybody? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow.